everyone, and welcome to the First Nations information session on the Disaster Resilience and Innovation Program, the DRIF. My name's Casey. I work with special projects with Finesse. I'm participating from beautiful Kwagyu territory today, and my own nation is Kitimat, Haisla Nation. I'm happy to be supporting and putting on this session on this pretty neat program. We're recording this session. It'll be on the Finesse playlist for the webinars. And before we get into our presentation, we'll do our round robin. And if you could introduce yourself and the position you have in your community or organization, any expectations you have of the meeting, and any question that you have going into this about Disaster Resilience and Innovation Program, the DRIF program. There's online information or disaster risk mitigation in general. So I'll start on my screen. Kendra Norwood.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kendra Norwood. I'm with Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. I am the project coordinator on the DRIF program team, and I am joining you today from the Sinixt, Chinoha, and Silts territories just outside of Nelson.
Thank you very much. Cameron L. Good to see you, Cameron.
Hi, I'm Cameron Lulua. I'm the EPC for Honeyquitine First Nations. And the weather outside is pretty nice, and I'm just here to learn.
Thank you. Christine Lewis.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Kristen Lewis, and I'm with the province I work as a program coordinator or manager on the Disaster Resilience and Innovation Funding Program with Britt and Kendra. And I'm calling today from the Chianu or Beecher Bay First Nations territory in beautiful East Souk on Vancouver Island.
Thank you. Brittany Irvine, sorry.
You had it right the first time, Casey. It is Brittany Irvine. I am calling in today from the beautiful Wasanich territory, where I am happy to live and work and raise my family. I am the Senior Technical Officer on the Disaster Mitigation Adaptation Programs team, and I focus on the provincial funding programs, so the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, or CEPF, as well as end-of-year grants, and then, of course, this new Disaster Resilience and Innovation Funding Program. So thank you so much for having us, Casey.
Thank you, Brittany. Ziamara O'Brien.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ziamara O'Brien. I work for Finesse. I am one of the regional climate resiliency coordinators. I work in the coastal area. I live in Bowen Island in the Coast Salish territory. And and I'm excited to be here.
Good to see you. David Carson.
Good morning, everyone. David Carson, representing Land Force people and several of the communities I work for. And I'm traveling around too, and so I'm just going to be a little gentle on, on Coast Salish territories today, and I acknowledge that and appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you, David. Stephanie.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Ford, Community Recovery and ESS Supervisor with Finesse, calling from the traditional territory of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you, Stephanie. There's two Stephanies on board. There's also a Stephanie without a last name, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi there, Stephanie Louie, calling in from Trinket, the Deputy EPC. Thank you.
Good to have you. Sabrina Elliott.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm joining you from the Quetzal territory. My name is Sabrina Elliott, and I am the Emergency Program Specialist here at Cochin Tribes. And I have
I'm Cedar Morneau. I'm working here for the summer for emergency services.
We're here to learn from everybody.
Good to see you
see
both.
you.
Zaina West, Mawachat Muchalat. You're on mute, Zaina. There you go.
There. Good morning. I'm Zeta West from Mochalat First Nation. Yeah, just here to listen and learn, and maybe talk a little bit if something comes up that I want to talk to. Cheers.
Thank you, Zaina. Tina Neal.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tina Neal. I'm the Executive Director of Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation at Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. So here to support the team in their presentation to you today. And I'm calling from Esquimalt in Esquimalt and Songhees Nation territory.
Thank you. Brendan Mercer.
Good morning, everyone. Brendan Mercer, calling in from the beautiful Tecumloops, Tishwetmik territory. I'm the Decision Support Manager and probably quite relevant to this conversation, the Climate Resiliency Team Manager as well. One team helps get all the best information and one team can help you with all the funding needed for these type of projects. Thanks for setting up the meeting, Casey, and happy to be here.
Thanks. And if any of your team can just put their name and contact in the chat and what area they work in, that'd be great. Adam's iPhone. Morning.
Morning, everyone. Adam Ethier, Manager of Emergency Management at Lheidli First Nation on the Lheidli territory.
Thank you very much. Christina Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. I'm coming to you today from the unceded territories of the Stalo and Lakamo peoples, where I work as the Emergency Program Manager and Director for Emergency Support Services for Nations. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's good to see Mr. Trey Hale here on the call. Trey, good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you guys. Trey Hale, Director of Emergency Services for Iskit First Nation. Calling on behalf of on the beautiful Tanaha Nation here. So I'm down in the Kootenays right now. So yeah, just here to keep updated on more and more funding. As everybody knows, funding is a big thing. So yeah, I'd like to stay up to date.
Thank you, Trail. Jeremiah Louis.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Lewis with Tackling Nation. So happy to see some new funding coming out and hopefully, yeah, some good information comes out. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Clint Williams.
Good morning, everybody. Clint Williams with the Notsimat Tribal Council, calling in from the Tla'amin Nation territory, Powell River, BC. Just excited to learn about this new program and see if there's some good information to share along with our member nations of the Notsimat Tribal Council. Good morning.
Thank you, Clint. Sean with Nisconlin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sean McCarthy. I'm calling in from the Nisconlin band where I represent, and I'm the Emergency Program Coordinator, and I'm here to learn all about DRIF and the funding that it is going to get me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Talisha Myra.
Good morning, everyone. I am Talisha Myra, calling in from Squaw First Nation. I am EPC assistant to Breezy Webster, who is also sitting in with me here today, who is EPC at Squaw First Nation as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see Squaw here. Danova Collins.
Good morning.
Denova Collins. I'm the Emergency and Community Support Assistant with the Emergency Preparedness Program for Tecumlip's to Swimming. And I'm here to listen and learn, take some notes to share with the rest of our team.
Thank you very much. Kathy Robinson.
Hi, good morning. Kathy Robinson here, Hartley Bay. I'm the Emergency Program Coordinator. And good morning.
Morning. Albie Hocklip, EPC.
Good morning, everybody. I am Hacklip's EPC, just located outside of Lillooet there, and I'm a neighbor to Stephanie Louie in Cleetkit. So yeah, that's where we're representing.
Thank you very much. Allison Lohman.
I got one button, not the other one, sorry. Good morning, Allison Lohman. I am with Preparedness with Finesse, doing emergency plans and supporting building the emergency program, and I'm calling from Tanaka Nation.
Thank you, Allison. Jerry Vanilla.
Good morning, everyone. Jerry Vanilla, Emergency Response Coordinator for Coquitlam First Nation. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us. Grace Timney.
Yeah, good morning. Grace Timney, Emergency Program Coordinator for Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Just looking forward to learning a bit more about this new funding stream.
Thank you. Christopher Peters. Good to see you, Christopher.
White, Christopher Peters in Quest. Working for Finesse as Regional Climate Resilience Coordinator. And I see I have two communities I'm working with here, and this is a really good opportunity for them. Thanks.
Thank you, Christopher. Keenan Kip.
Hi, everyone. My name is Keenan Kip. I'm with Finesse. I work with the preparedness and recovery teams, and I am calling in from the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation, also known as Vancouver. I'm just here to listen and learn today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Mike with Dididat First Nation. And Mike, I wonder if you could share an email. I wouldn't mind following up with your community about some stuff.
Yeah, good morning. For sure, Casey, I'll send you a message with my email. My name is Mike Swiddick. I'm the Director of Infrastructure and Housing for DT First Nation, and I'm currently calling in from our main village of Balatsud on Nitnat Lake, Vancouver Island. Good to see everybody.
Good to see Dididat here. Christine King.
Elatith, everybody. Siamtala Toskli Tolitzel Costa Alis. I'm the Emergency Programs Coordinator for Sta Alis. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Tully Wiseman.
Slowly but surely. Good morning, Casey. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tully Wiseman from Cowichan Tribe, and I'm the Emergency Planning and Response Manager. Good to be here again on another session, and look forward to hearing about what we're doing today. Thanks, Casey.
Oh, you're very welcome. Nanine Bjornson. You're on mute, Nanine.
There you go. Hi, I'm Nanine Bjornson. I work at Latakadene Nation as Safety and BC Housing and IGB Coordinator. I'm just here to listen and learn more about the funding, and I'm excited. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Bob Mills.
Here we go. Good morning, everyone. Bob Mills. I'm the Manager of Special Projects with First Nations Emergency Services Society, originally from Skidegata, Haida, and I'm coming to you from the traditional territory of the Ntlaka'pamux people in what is now known as the City of Merritt. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Bob. Wendy with Finesse.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wendy Omiso, Preparedness Supervisor for Finesse, supporting emergency management plans, review and revision, and also with the online and in-person training for the EOC and ESS. So I'm also coming to you today from the Stalo Traditional Territory of the Palalt, Samath, and Chilkoot tribes. Thanks for having me.
Great that you can make the time, Wendy. Good to see you. Brendan Mather.
Good morning, I'm Brendan. I'm Mather. I'm a Director of Indigenous Partnerships with the BC Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. I'm calling in from the territory of the Wasanich peoples here at our Keating Crossroad headquarters, and I'm interested in, even though I'm with EMCR, I'm interested in learning more about this program from my EMCR colleagues, and really interested in learning about the questions that everybody else has about this new funding program. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you. Trudy Peterson.
Morning, everyone. Trudy Peterson. I work with special projects with Finesse, and joining the call to hear this great information for a few of the nations that we work with.
Thank you. Paul McCarthy.
Good morning, Paul McCarthy. I'm the Williams Lake First Nations Emergency Program Coordinator, just hopping on to get as much info as I can and try not to melt today, and apparently fix my camera later.
Good stuff. Is there anyone that I haven't called upon to introduce yourself and ask any questions? My screen's been jumping around a bit. So thank you all for the introductions and making the time. I'd like to head on to topic number 2, Brittany, and she's going to present on the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Program team. And then followed up after that, she will present on the program. Unless you're changing the order on us, it's all good.
Sorry, my boom was up. That sounds great. Kendra was going to share our PowerPoint, if that's still possible.
Nothing yet. There we go. Thank you.
Perfect. Just going to arrange this on my screen here. Awesome. So thank you everyone so much for joining us today to talk about the Disaster Resilience Innovation Funding Program, or what we call the DRIF program. Again, I'm calling in from the Wasanich territories today in what's now known as North Saanich. We will, as you see on the screen, have 2 separate question and answer periods, but please do feel free to ask questions throughout if that's okay, Casey, if that's what you usually do. We're absolutely fine with that. So this is an outline of what we'll do today. Introductions we've already done, but my name is Brittany Irvin, and I'm joined by Kristen, Kendra, and Tina, who are also from the Disaster Mitigation Adaptation team. Our presentation today will be divided into two different sections. First, we will speak, Kristen will speak to the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Programs team, what we call the DMAP team. She'll talk just a bit about what we do, what we fund in general, and kind of more of a general overview for you there about the team. And then we will stop for a Q&A there around the team itself, if anyone has any questions to do with the DMAP team. And then I will continue on with a bit of a presentation around the DRIF program itself, and hopefully we'll have quite a bit of time for question and answer after that around the DRIF program. So yeah, let's get started.
Great. All right. So we like to start with a little intro of, as Brittany mentioned, with the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Programs team and the kind of things that we do and fund. So an important figure from Public Safety Canada that really highlights the importance of mitigation activities is that for every $1 invested in mitigation, $7 to $10 can be avoided in post-disaster recovery costs. And since 2017, EMCR's disaster mitigation program has funded over 2,150 disaster risk reduction projects, totaling over $400 million in provincial funds. Investing in mitigation infrastructure requires a lot, but some of that includes an accurate foundational knowledge of the natural hazards a community faces and the risks associated with BC's changing climate, a thorough understanding of mitigation options available and their relative benefits and costs, and engagement with impacted and affected parties, including First Nations, local government, and equity denied populations. The impacts of climate change on the frequency and severity of the risks we face and the possibility of new risks means that we must broaden our approach to disaster risk reduction. We have to look at our approach to investments with climate change in mind. This includes looking at things like governance, financing, information, and data analysis, as well as capacity development and monitoring. In BC, this means that we are shifting from a single hazard approach to building longer-term resilience to natural hazards and climate change. It means requiring climate change considerations in applications, planning, and design, increasing consideration of natural infrastructure as an alternative to traditional gray infrastructure approaches, and considering new risks or increasing severity and frequency of risks due to a changing climate, such as extreme heat or more severe rainfall. A failure to look at disaster risk reduction with climate change in mind will mean that we're not prepared for what's to come. By investing in disaster risk reduction and developing policies with climate in mind, we reduce the burden on emergency response and recovery and reduce the potential mental health, economic, and other social impacts of disasters, as well as on people and lives and livelihoods. So that means that our work is aligned with the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, with the Climate Preparedness and Adaptation Strategy, Canada's National Adaptation Strategy, as well as the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. So we're very grateful for all of those who have shared with us over the years their experiences in navigating funding in the province. And we recognize that a lot more work is required to align with the declaration and to respond to all the feedback that we have heard. We've listened to the feedback received over the years from Indigenous nations, organizations, youth, and elders, and we're working to bring this input into our policy and our programs. This feedback has come to us through engagement on Emergency and Disaster Management Act, on the Climate Preparedness and Adaptation Strategy, and most recently, the development of the BC Flood Strategy. And to date, we've taken steps to improve our programs to uphold Indigenous knowledge in programs, to changing requirements for information sharing, to respect Indigenous ownership and control of their community's data and information, to recognize elders and knowledge holders as experts by properly compensating them for the expertise they provide, and a shift in eligible activities to include protection and preservation of cultural heritage. We've heard that capacity and accessibility challenges remain for First Nation communities as well as small and remote communities. While we've adjusted our programs, there's still more that we can do to ensure that everyone is included in disaster risk management. We particularly want to thank FNES for the work that they've done to support First Nations to apply for funding. And we've heard that people are interested in natural infrastructure, and this is reflected in the applications that we've received on our recent funding programs. We're very excited about the interest that communities in BC are showing for this type of project. And we've heard that ensuring that mitigation works that enhance fish habitat is a priority. And we've included fish-friendly design into our programs where possible and are looking for future opportunities to continue with this. Now, some of the different activities, foundational activities that we fund that are eligible for DMAP projects include foundational activities that support community resilience by providing data, building partnerships, and supporting long-term disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation planning. Things such as risk mapping, floodplain mapping, completion of disaster risk reduction and/or climate adaptation plans, or a multi-hazard and climate risk resilience plan, assessment of a community's adaptive capacity, preliminary planning of and design of activities that are related to development of proposed structural projects, and benefit cost analysis to address future risk reduction options under consideration and comparing the potential benefits to costs. Some of the non-structural mitigation activities include non-physical activities that reduce the likelihood or the consequence of risk through modifications in human activities like behavior or natural processes. Examples are land use planning, like amendments to relevant plans or bylaws and policies that contribute to long-term disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation. Delivering community education and awareness projects like community workshops, story maps, public art projects, and the purchasing of equipment like monitoring equipment or hydrometric stations, as well as temporary mitigation solutions like tiger dams. Small-scale structural project types include new construction of public infrastructure and modification or reinforcement of existing public infrastructure, including natural infrastructure that prevent, mitigate, or protect against natural hazards and climate-related disasters. Some of these could include constructing or replacing or upgrading of infrastructure, installation of structural flood protection works, or upgrades and retrofits to modernize existing structural flood protection works. It could be daylighting or opening buried water flows and restoring them to more natural conditions. Slope stabilization projects relating to debris flows and risk reduction, wetland restorations or rain gardens, bioswales and infiltration bulges, new or modified public cooling or warming infrastructure that can reduce the community vulnerability to extreme temperature, as well as other innovative projects. So we'll pause here to see if there's any questions regarding information specific to the DMAP team before Britt begins the presentation on the DRIF program specifically.
Thank you. If people want to raise their hand or just jump in, and it's okay if there's no questions.
I guess, sorry, quick question here, Casey. So when we're looking at warming cooling centers, is there any way that can be adapted to helping to buy, let's say, AC units and that type of stuff for elders and that type of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a designated cooling or warming center, we can absolutely look into those types of units to help out there, HVAC systems and air conditioning units, for example, if it's a designated cooling or warming center. We've also funded in the past in other programs temporary mitigation solutions to extreme temperature. So those portable air conditioning type of units, if it's to First Nations or local government or municipal owned buildings. So those are two separate avenues that we could look at with you, Trey, also if you want to reach out.
Sure. And just one final thing here. Obviously this week throughout the whole province, we're looking at pretty extreme heats. So we did put in a request last week we were talking to somebody from EMCR about like misting tents. And we were told that we could rent them, but not buy them.
Oh, interesting. That would be the response team, unfortunately, and we're on the mitigation team, so I'm not actually sure what they're able to provide. I don't know if Tina has any more information there on that, but Trey, we could also help you out and get you in touch with our response folk if you'd like.
Perfect. Sounds good. I'll send you an email. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Trey. Any more questions on this part of the presentation?
Casey, can I quickly ask something? Just that one I referenced. Just for EMCR, are you using the term DRR planning interchangeably with emergency management plans?
Not necessarily. Emergency management plans, as I understand, can be a little bit response focused, and so we're really focused on the mitigation pieces. Okay. But that might be something that we could speak to afterwards as well, because there's often quite a bit of overlap.
Yeah, I'm just because we generally reference EM plans, and I've noticed we're using the word disaster resiliency now, so to reference emergency management as a whole. So I'm just wondering, just clarifying the acronyms.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. The DRR part would be that mitigation piece to your emergency management plan. Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question. Can this funding be used for a generator for some of the critical infrastructure?
The Generators are often what we fund in the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund for the EOC or the ESS streams. So that would probably be, if it's related to the intent of those streams of that program. Generators are often considered more of a preparedness approach as opposed to mitigation, but again, this could be very project dependent. So feel free to reach out to Nova.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just thinking of our water treatment plant.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
that could also be something that might be considered operations and maintenance, which the DRIF program doesn't fund. But maybe after my DRIF program presentation here, if you still have a question on that, absolutely feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Albie, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
I know Finesse was helping our community with the water transfer station, like that automatic transfer switches. And that was with Paula Santos and I think someone from BC Hydro. But for your generators for your community though, most of the time your generator is going to cost like 160 to 170,000, and that ESS or the EOC one is a $30,000 grant. So you got to figure out means to get that one. But yeah, the finesse team was very helpful with the water stations, like our pump houses, and that we got all of them assessed, and hopefully we'll be getting portable generators, which is a bit easier because you're allowed up to $5,000 per generator.
On the water system side, if many of you recall last year when the province collaborated and did a template for water systems response plan in response to drought, there's a guidebook for local authorities and First Nations. And the Pacific region, ISK and First Nations in 2014 created a template for emergency response plan for water systems. And they did the same for wastewater systems. That guide in 2014, my understanding, doesn't fully factor in climate change. And so my understanding is First Nations can apply for NSMP funding to update your emergency response plans for your water systems to factor in for drought and climate change. And that'd be the non-structural mitigation program. So if it hasn't been updated and you want to put that drought and climate change lens, I think there's funding available.
Casey, I'll also just mention that the EOC and the ESS, as well as the other preparedness streams of CEPF, is now 40,000. I acknowledge that's not quite the 150 or 160 that's needed for a generator, but it is at 10,000 more than what it used to be. So a little bit more help there.
Perfect. And if you or one of your staff can put that reminder link in, I know many of us are familiar, but then people can copy it if they'd want.
For CEPF there, Casey, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I can do that.
If there's no other questions on this, Albie, is that a legacy hand or a new one?
New one. The approach that I'm doing for our generator is I'm putting it through to Chief and Council to ask the admin side and the health side, because they will both units will be benefiting from this generator plus the EOC. So my contribution plus theirs, and hopefully that helps other nations think and try and work together, so that way the elders, the youth, and then anybody that we're assisting is taken care of.
Thank you, Albie. In the chat, there's some more resources, including drought. And if people haven't seen the Finesse wildfire resources list this year, send me an email because it also has extreme heat and drought stuff on it towards the end. If there's no other questions, we can move on to our next presentation on the team itself.
Thanks, Casey. I do see that Clint asked in the chat if there's a minimum and maximum dollar amount for this program. And so for the DRIF program, program itself, we do have a slide coming up about that, but the foundational and non-structural maximum is 400,000, and the small scale structure is 5 million, but there are some more details I'll speak to in a later slide as well.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So I would love to speak with you now about the DRIF program itself. So we do consider the DRIF program as to be a type of backbone for the EMCR disaster risk reduction funding program suite, giving communities that certainty as other programs do tend to come and go. So the program goals for the DRIF program, or those objectives, are that First Nations and local governments improve their resilience to natural and climate-driven disasters through improved understanding of risks, vulnerabilities, and risk reduction options, and the development and implementation of structural and non-structural risk reduction projects. So those are the types of projects that Kristen spoke about earlier. Another slide here on some objectives. So these are program requirements. All projects will have to meet basic program eligibility criteria, and that includes that projects must be in British Columbia. Project proponents must be First Nations or local governments, must align with program intent, so in other words, disaster risk reduction, deal with a natural or climate-driven hazard or hazards, must meet all applicable regulatory or permitting requirements, must meet all requirements for engagement and consultation with First Nations, and must include climate projections. Proponent eligibility. So as I mentioned, First Nations and local governments in British Columbia are eligible for the DRIF program. Local governments include municipalities and regional districts. Engagement with local First Nations, communities and or organizations before the development of the full proposal and throughout the project is mandatory to ensure that concerns related to downstream project impacts, vulnerability, equity denied populations, and reconciliation are appropriately raised and addressed. The eligible hazards for the DRIF program are on your screen there. I'll read them out. Drought and water scarcity, erosion, extreme temperature, flood, geohazards. So that could be, for example, avalanche or landslide, sea level rise, seismic, storm, tsunami, and we like to say other, in case there's another natural or climate-driven hazard that your community is facing. Please just get in touch with us before submitting your expression of interest, and we can make sure that it would be eligible for the program. That little box at the bottom there is important to remember. Wildfire risk reduction projects are not eligible through the DRIF program. Those types of projects are funded through the Community Resiliency Investment Program. Their email is cri@ubcm.ca. If you ever have questions about wildfire risk reduction projects, please feel free to reach out directly to them, or you can also reach out to us and we'll point you in that right direction. So the DRIF program will pay 100% of eligible costs for all proponents up to the approved project maximum. So in other words, the proponent does not need to contribute their own funding or have funding for other parts of the project. It can be 100% from the DRIF program itself. Each First Nation or local government may be a lead or partnering proponent on no more than 3 expressions of interest in each stream. So there's 2 different streams for the DRIF program. As we've spoken to them a little bit already. That first stream is those foundational and non-structural projects. That's $400,000 per partner proponent per EOI. So said another way, if one proponent was partnering with another proponent, you could apply for up to $800,000 for stream 1, and so on if there was more partnering proponents. Stream 2 is structural projects. This is $5 million per partner proponent per EOI. There is a maximum for this one. The maximum is $15 million per EOI. So even if you have 4 partnering proponents, that maximum is $15 million. Again, I just want to mention for that slide that this includes the proponent's inclusion in a regional application. So 3 per stream can be submitted at once for a total. You can have a total of 6 EOIs submitted. Project size and phasing. So due to the likelihood that this new program will be oversubscribed, proponents are encouraged to consider whether phasing is an option for those larger projects. So where a phase is submitted as an independent project, the phase should also independently meet the intent and the outcomes for the program. If applying for a phase of a larger project, the proponent should identify how the project will be phased, so that could be a part of the EOI. You can speak to the phasing there. And the project descriptions should be organized to easily describe each of the phases in the project. And then you can highlight which phase is being asked for by the DRIF program. So one other thing to mention, the approval of one phase of a project does not guarantee that the other phases will then eventually receive funding from the DRIF program. You can just go back one, Kendra, to the expression of interest slide. Perfect. So I would now like to speak to how to submit your proposal to the DRIF program. So the DRIF program is the first program for our team that is based on expressions of interest, or we call them EOIs. They can be submitted on an ongoing basis through either an online portal, which we can provide the link to in the chat here. After I'm done the presentation, I can copy that in. A video or audio submission. So that could be, if you'd rather submit a video or audio submission via email, for example, that'd be great. And then also an interview process. So if the way that is best for your community to to submit your expression of interest would be to have a phone call with us, we would also welcome that. There is a printable version of the EOI that can be downloaded on the website for those conversations, or the audio submission, or the video submission, to kind of help the community to prepare for that process. Once the EOIs are received, our program team will assess the EOIs against the program criteria and priorities, and then invite eligible proponents to pursue developing a full proposal, which is a much more detailed expansion of the EOI, if you will. There is no deadline for the EOIs. EOIs can be submitted at any time of any day. They are accepted on that ongoing basis. They will be selected for this fiscal year. They're being selected on an annual basis. So for this year, the cutoff date for this fiscal year's funding is September 15th of 2024. But for future years, it's the hope that date might move up a bit to be more in the spring, perhaps. We haven't really determined those next dates yet, but perhaps to give the communities a bit more time for those full proposals. Also, one more thing I'd like to note is that eligible EOIs from previous years can be selected. So I'll put this into an example. Let's say for this first fiscal year, we're very, very oversubscribed, and we choose certain EOIs are selected to move forward to the full proposal, and then many EOIs remain in that EOI pool. The next fiscal year's funding, we can go back to those EOIs that were submitted for this fiscal year. So they would remain in that pool. They don't need to be resubmitted each year. They can remain there as long as the community is interested in having them still remain in that pool for consideration. So once the EOIs are submitted, as I mentioned, they do move, some are selected to move forward to the full proposal stage. The full proposals are much more fulsome. They are much more detailed. It is how the community and our program team really get down into the details of how the project is going to be completed. And once those full proposals have been assessed by our team to ensure the project meets the eligibility requirements, projects will then be prioritized based on the primary criteria that you see on your screen. So risk reduction, in other words, the protection of life and critical infrastructure. The degree to which mitigation options have been evaluated and assessed. Projects that address the need of groups disproportionately impacted by emergency events. Support for small rural communities. Collaborative regional or watershed level approaches. And then co-benefits. So that support for youth voices, for example, ecosystem restoration, for example. There are mandatory documents that need to be submitted with the full proposal, and those you can all see in the program guide. They're listed out for you there, but they include things like a project plan or project schedule. We're looking for a detailed budget on what activities will be funded by the DRIF program. And if applicable, for example, for those small scale structural projects, we might want to see a site plan or preliminary design if that's applicable to the project. We do look for a council resolution, a band council resolution, or the appropriate endorsement as determined by the First Nation governance structure. One of those three things needs to be submitted by each partnering proponent or just by the lead proponent if there are no partners. And we're looking for that sometime before the contract is signed, so before the shared cost agreement is signed. So if you don't have a band council meeting or you aren't able to get the appropriate endorsement before submitting the full proposal, that's absolutely fine. We would just look to make sure that we had that by the time we were signing the contract together. So the DRIF program team, myself, Kristen, Kendra, our director, Heather Stober, who is off this week, and then Tina and many other people that are also on our team, we are able to work with communities throughout the life cycle of the project. So our goals as a team is to provide support for that reporting, those reporting pieces, strengthen the relationships with communities across BC, and also create opportunities for site visits. We love being able to go and see the projects that have been funded by our programs. This picture that you see here is actually an example from a couple months ago where two of our teammates got to go to Penticton Creek Restoration Project. This was the ribbon cutting or the grand opening of the project. And so this was a picture from the newspaper where they got to participate in that and really build those relationships and connect with those community members. So we really look forward to those when they're possible. So with that, the formal presentation there is finished, but I do welcome, we have quite a bit of time left, so I welcome any questions from anybody, or if you feel more comfortable just messaging our team. The email address is up there. It's emcr.disastermitigation@gov.bc.ca. I know Tina also put it into the chat. So please feel free to reach out to us that way. We're setting up quite a few one-to-one conversations with communities as well to talk about their projects, their ideas they have, or if they even just have a hazard that they want to talk about. We're doing that quite often now. So we welcome those conversations whenever we can. So thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to hopefully answering some of your questions.
Thank you, Brittany. I see there's a question in the chat, Allison Lohman, about admin costs.
Yes. That's a great question. I'm opening the program guide just so I can quote it without misspeaking, but they are eligible. So administrative costs are eligible to a maximum of 10% of the approved project cost.
Clint, I see your hand raised.
Hi there. Yes, quick question here. I don't know if I missed it or not, but we have a couple of communities that are really short on water. Even before the heat gets here, their water systems are kind of maxed out, even when it's still raining a bit. Like they're just not set up well. Is there any methods within this program that would allow for, like, let's say, a storage tank improvement or something like that?
Yeah.
I trying to think of ways to help them because their source dries up pretty quick, and it's a challenge on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we do absolutely fund drought related projects. I hear what you're saying. This isn't necessarily drought related. It's also related to just the capacity of water in the nation or the community. We would need to have a bit more of a conversation around this one, I think, Clint, because there are some aspects to the community water systems that would not be eligible, but we absolutely have funded in the past through CEPF reservoir type of projects and those type of drought related projects. If there's, for example, your water supply is at risk of being in a landslide, for example, that's something else that we could look at. So it's not always drought related, but it often is. I would really, encourage you, Clint, if you could, to reach out to talk about your situation specifically.
Yeah, sure. No, it's much appreciated. We'll reach out to have that conversation. We just we had a fire in one of our member communities, and they used all their water fighting this house fire, and they were kind of buggered for the rest of the summer because the water didn't recover. So yeah, just tough circumstances, situational stuff.
Yeah, and this sounds like a really good opportunity for us to connect with our colleagues at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. We could also link in with them if they have any ideas about. They often know of funding programs that also fund water related projects. So maybe we could connect with them as well and see what we could do for your community.
Thanks a lot, much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Clint. Good question. Any remaining questions for the presenters? Mike, did it out?
Yeah, thank you, Casey. Thanks for the presentation. My community out in Nitnat here has a number of buildings built 20 plus years ago. The climate has significantly changed out here, particularly through the summer. A lot of those buildings were never built with air conditioning because they relied on ambient temperature from outside to essentially cool the buildings. They were also built to an R value insulation that isn't robust enough to adequately cool buildings, for example. So these are all sort of related to the climate change conversation. What we're finding is a patchwork of systems and programs and supports to address some of these things. So, Clean Energy BC for heat pumps, BC Hydro for insulation upgrades, ISK-funded improvements for our O&M. And it is more than a full-time job navigating all of the systems. And so, I always advocate for, the collaborative efforts between nations and other governments to, keep everybody informed of these different programs, because probably every nation across our province has some form of O&M that needs to be addressed. And with a lot of capital assets and capital infrastructure sort of behind the times as far as climate change is concerned. So these funding streams are really good announcements, but I always encourage the province and the feds to sort of collaborate and find a common place for nations to access different programs. So the onus isn't on one nation to sort of apply, source, and compete with other nations for the limited funding streams that are out there. So I guess no question, just comment and observation.
That's a really good comment. Thank you so much, Mike. It is really difficult. I hear you absolutely. Tina did put a little link in the chat there about the community climate funding website there, where you can put in some of your information, and then it often will show you funding opportunities that are available. And I hear you saying that, yeah, then you see all these funding opportunities and it's a full-time job to have to apply to them all. And I completely understand that. I guess what I can speak to a little is what I spoke to earlier about hopefully you could find the time to maybe look into an expression of interest for that temporary mitigation solution for the portable air conditioning units to help your community in particular. Again, I'm sorry, I hear you that that's just another step, but maybe our expression of interest process you'll find a little less of a full-time commitment, and it could even be a phone call like we're doing right now that we can submit your EOI for you through that conversation. So please reach out to us, anyone on this call, if that would be a situation that you would be looking for.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. I spent some time as a politician for my nation, so I walk a fine line between a political perspective and an operational perspective.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you for that. Brendan, would you like to explain a bit about the potential supports by the climate coordinators?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Casey. At Finesse, we have a team of climate resiliency coordinators. You heard from Christopher Peters and Hiomar O'Brien earlier, but their main objective is helping communities get as much funding as possible for resiliency, disaster risk, and emergency management type initiatives. So some of the things that we've talked about, especially some of these programs, they can absolutely help develop the application, find other funding sources to make it easier. And hopefully at the end of the day, like I say, get more funding to communities to take on some of these types of projects. You might be muted there, Casey.
Any final questions of the presenters? And it's okay, there's been a lot of ground covered.
It's a lot to take in.
Copies of the presentation will be emailed out. I think did I see that in the chat?
Yeah, Casey, I can send you through a copy of the PowerPoint if that would be the easiest way to do this, and then you could send it out to all participants.
Yeah, what I'll do is we'll quickly edit this recording, and then on our playlist, you can download the agenda and the presentations of any information session. So we'll try to get that done as soon as possible. So thank you very much, everyone. I think we could reclaim another hour per day. My thank you to the presenters. My thanks to those of you from community and others who took the time and all the great questions. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Casey. Thanks for the opportunity to talk, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.